Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Danny Boyle's Trainspotting from 1996. So yes, here we are to talk about this film, and here it is on Blu-ray. Yes, indeed, here we are, of course. And yes, I did actually film this after filming the second one. I reviewed that a couple of days ago, but this is going to be uploaded before the second one. So yes, that's kind of interesting. I thought it'd be easier to actually talk about the second one first, and then go on to this one. One of the reasons being I think this is a much better film, and just to kind of build that up, just in my flow of my actual review. But yes, this one will be appearing on the uploads before the second one, shortly before that. And yes, here we are, the second Danny Boyle feature film, and I actually got a request from a subscriber actually, about regarding this film. They said, would you consider reviewing Trainspotting? And I thought, of course, absolutely, of course. I did plan on reviewing these films. Danny Boyle. I don't know why I've not talked about him really, until this point on the channel, because he is actually one of my favourite directors, and certainly, modern cinema. I think he's right near the top. Just in terms of the number of great films he's made, a few masterpieces for me, and just I think unique. And just so talented. I think and this film, for me, is his finest film, no doubt. I'll say that now. It's maybe ruining some of my later reviews, the anticipation, but there's no contest for me personally. Just my connection to the film, and what I think is by far the finest Danny Boyle film. It's this. It really is, and yes, here is the review, of course. And this film, not just the greatest Danny Boyle, but and I've not really talked about this film too much. It's quite surprising, but this is actually one of my very, very favourite films of all time. This is actually well into my top 100, believe it or not. And I first saw it back in 2015. Of course, yes, spoilers alert. We'll quickly say that. But I saw it back in 2015 for the first time. I'd been hearing about this, of course, for so many years, and it's a film that it is very popular. It is in the top. 250, I believe, in IMDb and stuff, and it is very, very popular. Just in terms of British films, it's very highly regarded. Often on polls of greatest British films, and there's so many people respect this film and just love this film. And of course, yes, I watched it, and then actually the funny thing is, which I mentioned in my second review, this film. T2, actually, the news of that, actually confirming Danny Boyle will be working on that next, actually came literally a month after I watched this for the first time. So I was kind of looking into it for a bit. I would really love to see a kind of sequel, and to this film, because I love it so much, and it's got room to kind of return to these characters in this world. And yes, there it popped up, the news, and I was just so happy. But yes, this film, this is where it all began, the original Trainspotting. And when I saw this film for the first time, 2015, I've since seen it 4 times, this watch included. So I've seen it 5 times within 5 years, and yes, I was, a rare occasion of a particular level of blown away. Let me tell you, I think very, very short film, actually less than 90 minutes if you kind of discount the credits, and it just, it was over before I knew it, and despite that, I think it really instantly became one of my most cherished films. Just the one that there's so much in this, despite its very, very short runtime. There's something about this. There's so much in it, even just because the characters are so well presented. There's kind of the before and after, leaving you wondering about both. And it's genius directors like this, genius storytellers. Script by John Hodge, working on this with Boyle. This is something that, in every element, it comes together so well, and it's such an investing film that kind of, even though it's very, very short, it's just, it has my investment of what happened before this, what happened when they were younger, and what's going to happen next. Instantly, just before the sequel came along, I was just so immersed in this world, and these characters, and this overall narrative, and it really is, it just blew me away in its energy. Of course, Boyle said, I believe he said, it has the potential to be maybe one of, if not the most, kind of purely energetic experience, energetic film. And I think, surprisingly, actually, that does kind of, that's quite accurate. I think not quite the most energetic film of all time, but certainly one of the most, and particularly in its first hour or so, just a little under the hour mark. This is the one that the level of energy is remarkable, and actually, it's one of the things that I feed off of. This actual element of the film, the fact that it's so constantly, yes, just energetic. The kind of the life in this film, and it is, of course, ironically about of course, drug users, heroin, of course. So it's a very hard drug, and set in Edinburgh. And weirdly, it's actually mostly shot in Glasgow, even though the film is, setting is Edinburgh. A couple of scenes, I believe, were shot in Edinburgh, but most of the film was in Glasgow, including the kind of the pub scene. When he throws the glass, and Begbie throws the glass. That scene there, but most of it, shot in Glasgow. But it's something that portrays. This lifestyle, of course, set in the 80s, late 80s, of course, and it's something that it has everything here. It portrays, the drug lifestyle. Music is, really, I could talk about that for an hour. Just the use of music in the film. I think just the way it kind of as well. It's a comedy. It's a comedy, but it's a drama. It's a really, really dark film at times. You have one of the most disturbing scenes of all time. I think most people know what I'm on about there if they've seen the film. Around that kind of 40-minute mark or so. And that's actually just after that is a real turning point in the film, and it's that operatic sequence after that of and looping back to the beginning of the film, and we have that music, of course, there by Blur, Sing, of course, which is used for kind of a segment there, a sequence that happens there, and it's just, I think that's the point once again every time where I just kind of, it's one of them genius moments in cinema, really, where you kind of, you just realise how much, well, first of all, how quickly the time's gone, let's just say that, because it's just constant, genius storytelling, character development, setting up this tone of the film, giving us information, there's all these different themes of consumerism, which we'll get to, but just, it just kind of hits me, and it's like, wow, we've already come this far, narratively speaking, and just within very little time, really, and it's kind of, it's almost half the film gone, but it's just whizzed through to this. We've covered so much despite that short runtime, and it looped me back to that beginning sequence, and showing it in a different way, of course, and it's just when that music kicks in as well, it's just there's something about that use of music at the right point in the film, and that whole the way the narration and the tone of the film changes from then on. The character of Sick Boy changes after we learn really that that's his son, that dies, of course, so horribly, that's his son there, really. We learn, it's kind of implied there, and he's never the same after that, and of course, he's also kind of, that has a ripple effect into T2 as well, Trainspotting, that, he's definitely a very changed character after this, and it's very, very sad, and that's when things really take a dark turn from then on, really, and you've got of course, Mark Renton coming off of the drugs, attempting to, and then we've got him going to London, and it kind of, picks up again in the energy there in terms of just the mood, and it's more funny again, but then you've got that final sequence with that, involving the 16,000 for the drug deal, and of course the event that happens leading into the credits, and that's the film. What we have here is one of the finest, films in cinema for me. This is just a magnum opus, just in my opinion. I think it really is one of the best films of all time. This is well into my top 100. It's in my top 70. We'll say that now, absolutely. Quite high in that, and I think just every time I see it, I think it, I'm just kind of blown away a little bit more, which is quite something. The instant kind of, oh my god, this is maybe underappreciated even, despite its acclaim and stuff. I think, I can't believe it, it's this good actually. I didn't really hear quite as much, in regards to that, but that's just personal opinion. I think, it just happens to be one of my absolute favourites, and I think it's better than most films I've seen, and I think just every time I get these emotions, I get, even deeper emotions, and I think just that ride, that rush of, just pure cinematic genius, the way the camera, just just the camera movement in this film, the editing. As I've said on my second review, T2 Trainspotting, I think this is one of the 50 best edited films of all time. I stand by that. I think this is just genius. This is very experimental at times, you could say, but the mastery, the control, and just the way that it kind of it makes sense in every instance. The way this is edited, the camera placements, the framing, the tricks that Danny Boyle uses in his storytelling, very very avant-garde, but fully formed. So it's kind of just something that I think is certainly a genius film, and I think one such moment example is when Renton basically literally sinks into the floor from his perspective, of course, and even when we have Peter Mullan, his character, kind of dragging him out of the flat onto the street. Ambulance arrives. Of course, Renton does not leave. He's kind of still sunken into the floor. What a genius way to do that scene. You have Lou Reed, of course, playing there. Perfect Day, which, this film is literally mind-blowing. And that song, the use of music there, another one of the defining moments of the film. When I first saw this is when I thought, absolutely, this is one of the finest pieces of art I've seen. And what a wonderful song, and the way that's used, it just gets me every time. The emotion, I break down in tears. What a wonderful film this is. A human film. It may just be. Some people may see it as a kind of just a kind of out there kind of drug film. About people in the UK. But I see it as a lot more than that personally. And not everyone will love this film. It's probably not for everyone. But I just can't. I can't look at this any other way than it is a magnum opus, in my opinion. These characters, of course, this opening scene. Let's go back to the opening scene. One of the, scenes are talked about as some of the best opening scenes. I mentioned, kind of. There's at times in my reviews where I say if I think this is one of the best. For example, Once Upon a West, or 2001: A Space Odyssey. Scenes like this, and this film, I think, really has. Yes, one of the opening scenes I think that's up there with them sort of films in its own kind of unique way. And this time it just is the fact of straight away through narration, through showing other characters, not just Renton, through just putting you in a situation that is tense, that is also funny, and just thrilling experience. This opening scene, putting you in there. And just starting straight away with the narration, the use of music, and just setting up the entire universe. We kind of know, in many regards, what the film is kind of being, what it's acting as. Certainly in the first act of the film, and we're just given some information, revealed, information, of course, in such, exciting ways, cinematically, and just through this narration, which is some of the best, and the script. All of this combines to create, one of the finest opening scenes, sequences for me in cinema history. It really is just one of my absolute favourites. It just straight away gets me pumped for the rest of the film, and then, of course, as I've said, when it does loop back to that scene, to that moment when they're running, of course, Renton being one character. That's, it really is. It's genius storytelling. It's kind of non-linear at times, but I'm describing it as there. But most of the film, it is linear. In many regards, in its narrative, despite having that kind of, flashback and then being used. The rest of the film going up to that, and then being used again, of course, to kind of continue the film. But it does have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it is kind of. It is, kind of a linear film in many regards, in just the way narrative progresses, but you do have that, of course, loop back there, and that kind of return to that moment, which is very, very unique, and I think it really, I think this is one of the best pieces, just using that kind of device of all time, and I think just, as I say, these characters, these are characters who, of course, are, very... They take drugs. They do outrageous things. They're criminals, of course, at times. And I think, But despite saying that, I think I didn't know what to expect for this film really. I kind of read a little bit about this film before watching it. I was very excited, of course. Having seen Danny Boyle films up until this, I'd seen a few. 28 Days Later. I'd seen Slumdog Millionaire. Actually, I'd seen quite a lot of Danny Boyle films. The Beach as well. As a kid, I saw that, and I was just thinking, this is going to be interesting to see. Little did I know how much I'd be instantly invested in this film, and I think the characters, this is, I think, one of the best ensembles of all time. Jonny Lee Miller as Sick Boy, absolutely stunning in this film. I think, of course, Robert Carlyle as Begbie. He really is kind of the villain of the film, and you could say as well, T2 Trainspotting, he's also the villain. Of course, he is one of their friends, one of the group, if you will, but he is kind of, in many regards, the villain of the film. And yes, he's, in some regards anyway. But yes, he's one of the most iconic characters in the film. Absolutely, I think Robert Carlyle is just a legendary actor in my opinion, and I think this is his best role, absolutely, hands down. I think he's never been better and just more enjoyable than in this film. And you've got so many great performances, including the Full Monty, a year later, one of my favourite films as well. And I think very, very different role. He's played so many roles, very, very different performances, but he is just, I think, at his best here. And of course, Ewan McGregor, he is great. He's been in quite a few films, of course. Star Wars, of course, as well, the prequels, he was in them, and a variety of roles. Recently, of course, Doctor Sleep, and I think once again, this is his best performance in my opinion. I think he's never been better than he is in here. I think just one of the best protagonists, and I think, of course, the direction was to kind of feed a little bit of inspiration from Clockwork Orange, and I believe the film Alfie as well. These two kind of merging here for the performance, for the mannerisms, and just the way to kind of treat this character cinematically, and just, I think I can definitely see the resemblance. But yes, in this film, I think just in these characters, of course, we've also got Spud, we've got Tommy as well. Spud, of course, played by Ewan Bremner, and they've all, of course, these four characters, excluding Tommy, of course. As we know, he does unfortunately die in this film, and but these other four characters are back in the second one. And yes, in this film, I think despite not having as much time focused on particular characters in this to the second to the sequel, I think they are actually better in this film. And I think just the combination of these characters, in certain moments throughout the film, the narrative, the initial just joy of seeing these characters, charming characters, of course, and very, very complex human individuals in this film. And I think it's just one of the most enjoyable ensembles in cinema, as I've said. And I think there's something about these characters that they're such human, flawed characters here, and of course they also have this kind of this charm about them, and also the comedy. The comedy in this film. This is one of the funniest films I've ever seen. Certainly the first half of the film, I think this is just absolutely hilarious, while also being very, very dark, especially later on in the film. I think, is one of the funniest experiences I've ever had, the pleasure of viewing. I think it just is a constant, kind of witty film in so many regards, in the script, in the performances, in the kind of, just these moments, with Spud, for example, with the, that scene at the breakfast, having breakfast, of course, there, that is just hilarious when he goes for the job interview, and all these different moments just make for one of the funniest films that I've ever seen. And this film, it is one of the funniest films that I've seen. But at the same time, I think returning to this film again and again, the emotions, as I say, are heightened, and by this I mean just how I think how tragic this film is, and how moving an experience it is. I feel, and not everyone will react to the film in this way, but I do think this is one of the most just moving films I've ever seen, really, in some regards. I think just what happens to these characters, in the way that it's kind of portraying this kind of lifestyle, the effects of drug use, of course. And one such scene, consequence being, of course, the kid dying, neglected, of course, because of, these characters taking drugs and, of course, not being aware of what's going on. And, just so many different aspects of this film, the spiritual level that this reaches, in certain scenes, for example, with that scene, of course, involving the song "Perfect Day." There's moments like this in the film. There's moments, just Tommy's death as well. Moments like this. That's just very, very, extremely, extremely emotional to me. And I think, his last kind of moments really that you see in the film of him, fully before this kind of, him, of course. Testing positive for HIV, and then of course dying from AIDS, very, very tragically, and we'll get to that. But the last moment really of joy of him is kind of about to go on that walk, of course, and out in the countryside, and that's a scene as well. What it's saying there is truly human, and I think it's just a really, really honest film in the way it's kind of just revealing, being true, and just having a particular take on British lifestyle, I feel, and the kind of ways in which the UK maybe is viewed, and there's stuff like this, and also just that scene there, of course, when you see just that conversation there, and of course Tommy as a character, he's one that's really outgoing and more kind of positive perhaps, but unfortunately he's the one who. And he's the one, of course, that's very hesitant at first from kind of taking this drug, and unfortunately, he is the one to contract, of course, HIV and die from AIDS. Effectively, we learn exactly what happens there. Of course, a bit later into the film, around his funeral, which is portrayed so wonderfully. Such a powerful scene there, and yes, you've got him, of course, being the one such victim of this whole epidemic and this use of drugs in this way. I think specifically what it's doing here, in kind of portraying the tragic aspects, of drug use, is truly, truly stunning. I think to behold, and just the honesty, the sincerity, the dignity, but the raw, honest portrayal of this, and just the way as well, the shocking, but true, certainly I can speak for the UK, the way that people are treated, because of this, and for example, the scene, or have been treated, both, I feel personally, just the way that, of course, we see Tommy's flat, the outside, for example, you've got the writing and the stuff involved there, which I won't get to specifically, but that's a really, really shocking moment, and it's very, very sad, and just the way that this character is treated, and how he's just a complete victim of this, but it's something that this explores choice, freedom of choice. Of course, the opening kind of sequence, and what it's saying, that kind of that whole kind of choose life sequence, if you will. That's something that, of course, is very, very key to the film. Very obviously, it's the opening kind of speech, if you will, by Renton, and saying all these things. Consumerism, is really a big theme of the film. Although I think less and less, the more and more I see this, the less and less I think is placed on, maybe portraying that in a bad way. I don't think it is at all. I think it's basically, I interpret it as, kind of showing the hypocrite maybe in all of us, and the fact that, Renton basically, very, very, quite hilariously, in the ending, he basically can't really deny himself the kind of the pleasure, and he has to give in himself to kind of consumerism, when it is there offered on the table. This money he takes, of course he takes the 16 grand, and he gives 4,000 to Spud, we learn, but yes, he takes this money from his friends, from this deal, and then he stays basically saying that he's going to yes, choose, etc, etc, the stuff that, of course, at the beginning is kind of used as a kind of a kind of comment there, and how consumerism works, but then it's kind of the hypocrite in all of us, and how maybe everyone in some way does kind of play into this system. I think that's really genius. But yeah, in that regard, it's not exactly a judgmental look on that at all. It's kind of just used as a kind of irony there, and how, you know, in the end, it kind of going in the opposite direction of what he kind of was saying at the beginning of the film. And you know, you know, I guess everyone, of course, within these types of societies, does play into the system. You know, and just it's not exactly you know, kind of looking at one way or the other. It's kind of just a balanced, you know, kind of, you know, exploration of this. And I think one of the main things this really does is you know, kind of just in every regard is show this humanity, show this complexity, you know, of just these characters and just this lifestyle. And it doesn't really judge these characters. You know, events happen in the film, and you know, characters. You know, certain characters, of course, feel consequences from their actions, but you know, it doesn't judge. I don't feel these characters. I think that's one of the genius things about the film, and one of the reasons why I think it has, you know, one of the biggest hearts in a film. I think is just the way it's not judgmental film, and despite being, of course, drug users, you know, these characters and certain things occurring, you know, and of course them being very outrageous at times, perhaps. You know, they are human characters. You know, we can kind of relate to them. I feel, at least I can, and just, you know, certain traits in these characters. Yes, they are bad, but then there's good points as well, and you know, ones that are just simply, you know, as a piece of cinema, this is a joy to watch. You know, it's a dark film. It is a kind of very gritty film, and of course that is also due to the fact that this was a lot of the scenes were kind of done very, very quickly, in the sense not many takes were done, I believe, for specific scenes, and it has this kind of, you know, kind of low budget maybe, but I don't feel it's low budget. I just think it's very, very gritty, I feel, and it doesn't feel, for example, like a debut film. I mean, even though it's, you know, it's the second Danny Boyle film, feature film, but it doesn't feel like a kind of debut film, or one that's kind of around a debut film from a director, because it's so fully accomplished, in my opinion, and it's so fully formed in its kind of you know, in its execution, and its storytelling, and its energy, and the life that is brought, you know, from this film, despite being, you know, about basically these characters almost destroying their lives. You know, it's a one that ironically is so full of life and meaning, and you know, just passion in every single frame, by every performance. You know, you've got Kelly Macdonald as well in the film as Diane, and she, of course, forms this kind of relationship with Mark Renton, and basically it all unfolds from there, and of course very, very complex what's going on there. And I think just simply makes for very, very shocking and you know, just absorbing cinema. You know, it is something that just kind of adds so much drama to the film. That kind of little twist there, of course. You know, of course, it puts our protagonist in a kind of situation, and then, you know, from there, it also adds a kind of you know, layer of kind of you know, tension and you know, kind of complexity to the film. You know, something that, you know, of course, puts our character in a different position. And yes, I think the whole film, many different threads going on, you know, in the film. So much dark subject matter, but yet it is one of the most energetic films. It is kind of so much fun. You know, so much excitement from this film that I get. You know, I just love every single second of the film. And I think just as a comedy, you know, very, very dark comedy, of course, as a drama, you know, this, you know, these friends, you know, these characters, you know, this portrays friendship so wonderfully, and of course the effects of their lifestyle and the way, you know, of course, for example, they lose Tommy. You know, it's so sad, very, very sad kind of story there. You know, but just these characters and the friendship that's involved, very, very complex relationships in the film. But it's so wonderful. It really, really is. And the parents, of course, who can forget that? You know, of course, James Cosmo as well, playing the father there, Mark Renton, and you know, you have you know, just the way that this family is portrayed, and the kind of warmth that comes through there, and their support. You know, of Mark, for example, coming off the drugs, attempting to getting cold turkey. It's referred to, of course. That sequence, by the way, is just one of the most genius visual moments in cinema. We'll just say that. I think most people can kind of who have seen the film will know what I'm on about there. You know, the whole kind of the way that the camera moves, the way that kind of the walls, of course, you know, kind of getting distorted, the kind of visions that he has, you know, just how disturbing is that sequence? You know, I don't think anyone can deny that. You know, it's something that really, you know, shocked me the first time I saw it, and it's just absolutely insane, that kind of sequence there. And I think weirdly one of the disturbing moments is, you know, the kind of portrayal of the game show there with Dale Winton. You know, ironically, that's really one of the most disturbing parts for me personally. I just think, you know, of course, and the crawling on the ceiling, you know, all these different parts that happen in that sequence. You know, just what a genius moment in cinema, and I think it's just, you know, a real turning point, of course. And then, of course, Mark is, you know, kind of trying to find a different life. He goes to London, gets a different job, and yes, of course, you know, the other characters, his friends, do follow him to London and eventually stay with him. Begbie, of course, being a character who really causes a lot of problems for Mark when he comes to his place in London, and you know, kind of just adds again so much comedy back in, you know, puts more comedy back into the film, more drama, and seeing these characters together again. These four this time round, only four characters, and this is when, you know, the kind of final act of the film plays out. You have that drug deal, and you know, kind of course, it goes in different ways there. And as we know, our protagonist, does end up with the money, and of course, he does give some to Spud, but mainly it is him at the end going across the bridge. You know, and of course, just that final closing shot there, and that narration. You know, this is one of the, you know, the genius films for me, and I think it's just an absolutely perfect film. Personally, everyone has their own definitions of, you know, what they call great films, good films, bad films, and masterpieces. I think this is personally a magnum opus. I think it just really is one of the most enjoyable films, one of the most meaningful experiences, and just a film that I love so much. I'm so invested in this world, in these characters, you know, just the humour of it. You know, I think it's so much entertainment, you know, watching this film, and of course I love the second one as well. We'll get to that, my next upload there. But yes, I think for me this is the best Danny Boyle film, and I think just using every single you know, device, element of storytelling available to him, you know, to kind of just tell this yes, just to let this narrative unfold. You know, just use so much creativity in this film, and the editing, as I've said, the use of music, what it says about music as well, and the kind of portrayal of this. You know, I think the kind of the way it's an escape back to a past time, just through the music, of course, through the culture. Of course, you've got one of the best soundtracks of all time. You've got of course Heaven 17 on there. You've got you know, Atomic, the song there, you know, which is one of my favourites of all time. You've got Lou Reed, Perfect Day. You've got Lust for Life, of course, being the main opening track there. Iggy Pop, and you've got all these comments on these artists, of course, and just through the posters perhaps, but just also the characters, the dialogue, you know, the kind of comments, of course, on you know, I think music and what's kind of saying. It's all rolled into this film. There's so much to kind of you know, take from this film, and I think, you know, rewatching this film, I just love it every time, even more. I think than the previous watch, and I think just the returned comfort, you know, to these characters, despite some being you know, some character arcs being very tragic and very dark. I think, you know, just returning to these characters and seeing this all unfold again, and kind of watching the second one as well, T2 Trainspotting, and then going back to this film, I think, you know, it's just, you know, I think this film is much better in my opinion, just my opinion, but you know, I think the second one is a great film. We'll get to that, but I think this one is the finest Danny Boyle film. I think it's absolutely one of the greatest, you know, magnum opuses in cinema. And you know, as I've said, you know, this has got so much themes, you know, rolled into this film. But I think, of course, the obvious being addiction, and also reality. The very best films are, you know, constantly kind of blurring the lines between fantasy and reality. And what I mean by that is kind of very much, you know, relates to this film. I think particularly in the way it kind of deals with perception and how reality is kind of portrayed in the film, and how the altering of perception through drugs, through addiction, of course. And this also just has, this film is all connected in everything. The characters, for example, their actions are driven by this addiction, by this kind of lifestyle, and then in turn leads to, kind of clear motivations we see, but also kind of ones where, through the storytelling, but also ones that are kind of altered and maybe, hard to understand at times because of this addiction and how it's affecting these characters. And then, of course, the consequences of drug use coming there, and then after that, reality kicking in, and the gritty nature of this. This is a film that shows the drug lifestyle and relating to music as well, and just this whole clubbing perhaps as well, and sexual encounters, and then of course it really becomes clear how kind of this is not at all glamorizing drug use. This is the complete opposite. It's kind of these characters, especially Renton, maybe do idolize this at times. Kind of in the first act, they are kind of characters who are riding this kind of high, of course, and it becomes very, very clear that even though that is shown and it's energetic and stuff, this is something that's because it is kind of showing this perspective, where these characters are under this, under the influence, of course, and then when for example, Renton comes off the drugs, it's a very, very different film. It's one that's much more, you could say it's more grounded. In the second half, it's more kind of closer to reality, it seems. In many regards, cinematically as well. There's not as much experimental, you could say. I don't really call it that, but kind of out there sequences. It's something that really becomes very, very clear in the second half, that this is showing the downfall, the kind of decay, and this whole kind of slump after this, drug use, and the way that these characters, kind of abusing their kind of bodies here, and the whole way that this film acts cinematically is all related to these characters' motivations, specifically Renton, of course. He's simply our protagonist, and we see the journey. We experience this through his eyes, of course, as a narrator, and of course, as just a character shown in the film, the way it's portrayed. But of course, the film really, really is genius in the way that kind of shows addiction. It's human in the way it shows addiction, and kind of showing these characters, these flawed characters. This is not kind of concealing anything. It's not sugarcoating these characters. It's something that's just offering them to us, and of course, they are hilarious at times. They're so likable, they're so charming, but of course, they are flawed individuals, and I think relating to these characters in that sense, in the way that I guess everyone is kind of, as a human, personality traits, for example. I guess we can all have flaws at times, and I think that's just something that really allows me to kind of be even more immersed in these characters. And of course, it is a kind of fantastical experience. It's very surreal. That carpet scene, of course, being one such example. The sequence, of course, when Renton is coming off of the drugs, and just so many sequences in the film. The toilet scene, of course, but it really is one that's very, very gritty, true to life, and I think the way it portrays the UK is so accurate, in my opinion. It really isn't. I guess a lot of people, that haven't been to the UK, maybe not kind of knowing exactly at times, how kind of how things are, in a sense. But I think living in the UK, I think I can certainly say that this film, kind of, it certainly is very, very relatable, but also just, I think, very, very accurate at times in the way it kind of portrays many aspects, and certain kind of the characters in this film, and the whole lifestyle of this, and the way different locations, I think definitely are very, very accurate and honest. But I think non-judgmental is the key thing here, and just something that is offering a human film here. It's just human characters, and it's something that is so true to life. It's a spiritual film. It's of course very dreamlike, surreal, of course, as I've said. Very, very avant-garde at times. But I think just a fully relatable film in many regards, and one that I love so much. I love these characters. I get so invested, and I think there is a real beauty to the film as well. The peaceful nature to the film. There's different scenes, quieter scenes, of course, just showing, of course, the beauty of Scotland. Perhaps the scene, of course, when they're about to go on the walk, getting off the train there. It'd be interesting to kind of discuss this film in the comments, the meaning of train spotting, perhaps, and all these different things. It's all very interesting. It all has a kind of, always a talking point. But I think the thing that I always, am wowed by the most is just how enjoyable it is to see these characters go through this journey, and how music is used, how it is, it acts cinematically, this film, and how just thrilling this film is. It's a real ride. Very, very short film, 90 minutes, but despite that length, very, very short-lived. This film, it is one of my favourite, absolutely 70, 65 favourite films of all time. I think not going to go higher than that in terms of what I reveal, but it is higher than that. I love this film so much, and absolutely, this film gets my highest rating that I give to films. And as we know, if you've seen my channel, if you've watched quite a lot of my videos, my highest rating is 100% plus. Tier S. This is, to me anyway, a magnum opus. It's one of the most meaningful films that I've seen, and one of the most fun as well. Just a thrilling, just joyous experience in its energy, in the way the film, is shot. Perhaps the editing, undeniably, energetic. This is so much, kind of just constant, revealing of events, information, but just, I think the excitement of it all, kind of the whole kind of rush, the thrill of it, just works so perfectly for me, just as a piece of film, as a film, just to kind of thrill someone, to kind of entertain, but that, as a piece of art as well. This is a real height, in my opinion, just in the history of cinema. I think, just what it's kind of doing in its themes, in exploration of materialism slash consumerism. What it's kind of saying about society. What it's saying about family, friendship. This is one of the warmest films that I've seen, in its characters as well, in the way that it shows these characters, the value, of course, that the film places maybe on their lives, but ironically the value, the kind of very little value that these characters have of their own lives, and the kind of way they do, unfortunately, especially Tommy, does unfortunately destroy his life through this this drug use, heroin, of course, being the main drug in the film that's portrayed, and of course the effects of that, and particularly when this occurred, this big epidemic, of HIV/AIDS, just the effects of that. I think it's just, really, really a truly honest film, and one that's not judgmental at all, and one that is truly sincere, and I think grounded, but also, of course, very much out there. No denying that, and just so kind of kind of fantastical and surreal. In the end, very, very spiritual, in my opinion, and all rolled into this very, very short film, 90 minutes approximately, and yes, just, of course, we have the sequel, which I'll have a review of next, and I can't wait to talk about that to you viewers. And yes, if you've seen this film, it would be so interesting to know what your thoughts are on this film. And I just really am so obviously, once again, so invested in these characters. I could watch endless amounts of film sequels to see more of these characters. Despite maybe, I think certainly T2 is the one that's really a sequel that's so kind of sincere, and valuing this film, these characters. But just seeing these characters in this film, I think just the way they portray it, it's perfect. Perfect storytelling, perfect characterization. This is just everything. It ticks all the boxes for me. I think Sick Boy, for example. I also love the kind of way he's a Bond obsessed character. Of course, I love Bond, and of course he basically specifically talks about kind of Sean Connery, and the end credits, of course, that song has the a mention of all the different Sean Connery Bonds, including Never Say Never Again. It's kind of used in that song. That's a moment every time I just kind of go, wow, so hilarious, of course, but just so genius. A little callback and interesting little trivia, of course. Jonny Lee Miller is the grandson, of course, of Bernard Lee. Of course, as we know, if you know, of course, he was the character of M for a number of years throughout, of course, the Sean Connery films as well. So that's really interesting. How he's the kind of Bond obsessed character that he plays, and he's of course actually the real life grandson of this actor who portrayed this Bond character. That's kind of really, I think, quite a cool little thing there. And yeah, but just Sick Boy, he's such a cool character as well. But yeah, just such a great character. Renton is one of the best in film. Begbie is one of the best in film. Spud, all these characters, they are some of my favourites in cinema. And just returning to these characters, again and again, it's just this sheer pleasure, privilege to be able to watch this film, as much as I want, and owning it, of course, on Blu-ray. And it's just such an experience. I never encountered in a film really actually in this specific way. This is certainly a unique film, and even the menu, to the Blu-ray, of course, it's got the choose, kind of all the words there. It's also got, within that, it's kind of got choose scenes, special features. It's just so amazing, the menu to this film. And I think another little thing, another little extra thing there. It's just so enjoyable, so unique. And yes, speaking of unique, this film certainly is. I think this is such a magnum opus in my opinion, and we'll end it there. I could talk about this forever, but I certainly need to get off now, and yes, I'm going to be quite busy, but yes, of course I will be uploading these hopefully in the next few days, over this week. This is Monday night, and of course I did film T2, of course, the other day, but these will be uploaded, the first one first, and then of course T2, Trainspotting, and within the next few days hopefully, and I just need to make sure that happens. And yes, tell me your thoughts in the comments. This will be very interesting to see. I don't really know if it's for everyone, this film. As I say, it's very dark, it's very graphic. There's certain scenes I can understand some people will not be able to watch, very obvious scenes in the middle of the film, but if you can watch this film, if you're okay with graphic content, and if you kind of watch a variety of films, that are dark perhaps, and maybe more gritty, this being more, a British film as well, I think certainly go for it. I can safely say that it's got my recommendation, but again, not everyone will like this film, but that's fine. I certainly just happen to be one of the people that absolutely adore this film. I'm obsessed with it, and I think also the fact that it's just so inspirational as a piece of filmmaking, and just in the way that, maybe not the biggest of budgets, but there's really just shows, that if you've got a budget, perhaps, and talent and determination, and just passion and energy, and just the will to go ahead and make this and do it in your own way, a film can be made and can be one of the best of all time, and this film certainly is, in my opinion. And as always, thanks for watching my review.